pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger roll, Atlantic.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Echo Delta nominal.
Flight down speed off. Bring in, let's speed off. Off.
Yikes. You bet. Okay. We don't need any more of these.
All right, folks, you know the drill. Let me know if you can hear me. John Galloway for NASASpaceflight here with a live feed from Vandenberg Space Force Base out in California. Tell me in chat if you can hear me and see the video. This video is actually coming from, surprise, Michael Baylor is in the field. Somebody let him out of the dungeon, and he has actually taken a camera to a launch, which we never let him do. So we have, looking over at chat, a lot of 5x5s, loud and clears. Looks like we're good to go here. So folks, we've got a launch coming up this evening, hopefully an instantaneous launch window for a Falcon 9 launching NASA's DART mission, the Double Asteroid Redirect. What's the T stand for? Somebody help me.
Test.
Thank you. I was like, DARM? The Double Asteroid Redirect mission? That's not right. This is quick. It's a test.
I was all ready to make laser noises for the announcement of the name, but we had to discuss what the T was. I don't know if you decide like doing it again, I'll throw in some laser for you.
All right, we didn't rehearse that or anything, y'all, so that's how it is. As we do, we've got some of the NASA spaceflight regulars here in chat and in the field today. So let's go around the horn real quick and introduce who is out there. You just heard the voice of Jack Beyer. Jack, where did you end up tonight?
I ended up trying to escape the ever-present Vandenberg fog and haze. I am at Harris grade. Got a couple cameras set up, but we wanted that close-up view, and Michael volunteered to go to the press site and get us the nice close view. So thanks for doing that, Michael. I am about 11 miles away at Harris grade.
And Harris grade is like the local viewing spot. It's like a road that's on the side of a mountain, kind of, and all the locals go there to a little turnout and watch the launches because it can see sort of the entire launch area, right?
Yep, and
Jack, you violated an important rule.
what was the important rule? He's not even going to tell us.
I don't know. His signal cut out. We can't hear you.
You're not supposed to talk about viewing locations at Vandenberg because there are not many and they get crowded fast.
I mean, Harris grade is a very well-known spot, and I mean, I'm not doing any damage here because we got here about 3 hours early, and the turnouts were already. So, pro tip, if you want to watch from Harris grade, get there earlier than you think is humanly necessary, and be prepared to be there for the long haul. But this should be a good one. Hopefully we get some good views on this launch. Hi, everybody.
Yep.
Bye, everybody.
That's Jack right there, y'all. Also, out in the field, we won't be getting a live video feed from Jack, but we are getting a live video feed from Michael Baylor. Like I said, he has left the programming control room cave that he lives in and is out there providing this live camera feed that we're seeing right now. And you just heard him on comms. Michael, we still got you there?
If the signal holds, yes, but there are a lot of SpaceX fans in the area right now, and it looks like there's a tiny bit of clouds I can see. You can kind of see it on the video, but it is mostly clear above. There are some higher level clouds, it looks like, but we'll see how long we can track it for.
All right, good deal. Michael's over there at the press site. This is actually a really cool place to see the launch from because it's sort of across a valley. There's actually a little river valley with some farmland down in between Michael and this spot right now. And there's a little park over at the end, the surf beach, or whatever, the surf beach train station is over there. But it's a really cool vantage point because you sort of look across this valley because Michael's sort of halfway up on a hill, just like the launch pad there is out at Slick 4E. Also, back in the studio joining me today, we should have Chris Gebhardt. Chris, we got you on?
You do indeed. Good evening, morning, whatever time it is in whatever time zone we're all in. I for one would not miss the mission that avenges the dinosaurs. So very much looking forward to it. You could actually say that DART's acronym is like a Dinosaur Avenge Redirect Test. I don't know.
Redirect
you could go with
test.
Yeah, you could go with some things. Yeah. Anyway, hello everyone.
We'll get into that in a second because lastly here we have Ian Atkinson this evening. Ian, we got you on comms?
Yes, sir. Great to be here. Very excited for this mission. And
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one for sure. For one, we hope this one crashes. We hope we don't hear from it a year from now. That's weird to think about.
So
Yes.
wait a second here. Somebody explain, Ian. You just said that you hope it crashes. Explain yourself.
Yeah, so for those who are unaware, this mission, they hope that this mission crashes into an asteroid. And the point of that is we've all seen the apocalypse movies, we've all heard the wacky theories of crashing stuff into an asteroid, blowing up an asteroid,
Nuke it, right?
see if
You
it,
just nuke it. That's the problem solver is nukes.
yeah,
It's always nukes.
It's
yeah,
the only
blow
way
it
to
up.
be sure.
But for now, they are actually trying hitting an asteroid with a spacecraft to see what it does to the asteroid's trajectory. That is the entire and the only purpose of this mission is to crash into an asteroid and try to affect its orbit. And that is crazy to think about.
Good time. So, talk to us a little about the mission here, y'all. And as we go through this, remember, this is a NASA Spaceflight live stream. If you've got a question for us, tag us in chat at NASA Spaceflight. We've got some cool software that'll pull questions. Same thing with future chats. What? With super chats, like we just got one from Musical Wolves here saying, just got to say that this mission is a smashing idea. Let's smash this handle. Thanks, Musical Wolves, for the super chat. So if you have a question for us, make sure you tag us. If you do a super chat, we read those out on occasion. We're just under 60 minutes from launch here. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, DART, T-minus 57 minutes. And so we have almost an hour here where we'll be answering your questions and just talking about what's going on with a NASA mission where they are intentionally crashing this spacecraft into the asteroid. So give us a little bit more information about the mission here. Who wants that one, Chris or Ian?
Yeah, I'll take that. So, I mean, this is a mission that is exactly what it sounds like. So, DART is Double Asteroid Redirect Test, and that's because it's going to a double asteroid, and it's going to try to redirect them. And in the absolute simplest terms, DART itself, we normally think of these spacecrafts as, oh my gosh, they're outfitted with all of these major scientific experiments and sensors and everything like that, because when they get there they have to study the system completely in depth, but that is not what DART is doing. DART is a 610 kilogram kinetic impactor, and its entire job is to slam into the asteroid moonlet Dimorphos, which is the moon of Didymos, which is the primary asteroid. And the goal of this is just to change Dimorphos's orbit around Didymos. And the way they're going to do that is the kinetic impact of DART slamming into this moon at 6.6 kilometers per second is going to change Dimorphos's orbital velocity by 1 millimeter per second. And that's an incredibly small change. And it's incredibly hard to measure usually, except the effect that this will have on its orbital period around Didymos is really easy to calculate, because the change of 1 millimeter per second will reduce the overall orbital velocity of Dimorphos, or orbital period of Dimorphos, from 11 hours 55 minutes to 11 hours and 45 minutes. And that is something that we will in some ways be able to see with ground-based telescopes and observatories that will be looking at this as the impact happens and in the months that follow. And it is also what the Hera mission and spacecraft from the European Space Agency will then go and study in depth. So DART is actually the first of two spacecraft that will go to this system. So DART will go and slam into it and change its characteristics of the system, and then Hera will launch in 2024 and get there in 2027 and actually study how the system changed over a prolonged period of time. And this is really important because if we ever saw an asteroid coming at the Earth and we had enough time, exactly what we were sort of joking about earlier, oh, it's just nuke it. Like, no, that's not necessarily the best thing to do. Because then you create multiple different objects that you then have to track. Even if they don't hit Earth, they could then swing back around and hit you on subsequent orbits. But if you can just hit an asteroid and nudge it slightly, a very small change in its velocity over millions and millions and millions of kilometers of space can have a pretty substantial impact on where that object is by the time it comes near Earth. So if we can just gently nudge it out of the way, great. Now we know exactly where it is, and we don't have to worry about it impacting us later on down the road. And that is sort of, in a nutshell, exactly what this mission is slated to do.
I like how you said gently nudge it, even though we're hitting it at what we said 6.2 kilometers per second.
Yeah, we're basically hitting it at what is 1 kilometer per second less than orbital velocity around Earth.
Nice.
Is what we're gonna hit it. And yeah, basically that's a nudge, a love tap, if you will.
The fancy term is kinetic impactor. I like to call it a solar sucker.
Solar sucker
I like
punch. Well, I think one of the coolest things about this is that we may actually get pictures of this happening, because there's a little ride along, isn't there?
There is indeed. It is pronounced Licia Cube, and it is from the Italian Space Agency, and it is going to deploy from DART, and then it's going to go out in front of DART and get into position to monitor the impact and the immediate after effects of this. So we're going to get pictures. We might even get, a sequence of images that look like a video, not in real time, but we will get those, which is pretty cool. That they basically sent a camera along with it in these little CubeSats. And we talk a lot about the CubeSat revolution in terms of Earth orbit, but here are CubeSats actually doing a very vital job of allowing us to watch these events take place in real time and not have to guess, and be very up close with some detailed images.
Excellent. So let me see if we've got some questions here, because there's all sorts of there's a couple. It's interesting. You're intentionally crashing a spacecraft into an asteroid. So a lot of times we hear about the instruments that are on board, and it's like there's this camera and this camera and a wide camera and this camera and this is infrared, and then there's this science sensor and this measures gravity, like all these different things, right? But on board, that's not really the case for DART. It's not a bunch of different sensors. It's literally just some solar panels, an engine, a camera, and a system to crash into the asteroid, right?
It is, and Ian, do you want to talk about a little bit about the solar arrays and the engine, because exactly what we just said is true, but NASA's actually using this in a pretty interesting way.
Yeah, so like we said, DART is a relatively small, relatively simple spacecraft. And actually, to add on to that, it's a very cheap mission considering it's escaping and leaving Earth. And the mission costs about $300 million compared to about $500 million, which is the usual starting cost for interplanetary spacecraft. But what you were talking about, Chris, this mission only does have one specific science instrument on board, which really isn't even a science instrument. It has the Draco camera, which it will be using to guide itself and use images from that camera to figure out where it is, where it needs to go, and guide itself right into the asteroid. But that is the only instrument on board. There is nothing else to collect science. There's no magnetometer, no other cameras. All this is a kinetic impactor. But there are several test payloads on board. The first of which is the Next C ion engine. And what that essentially is, that is a new design of ion engine that hasn't flown before. It's a derivative of an ion engine that has flown on the Dawn mission. This is an evolution of that that's designed to be better and more capable. So that will be a good tech demonstrator on here. Additionally, on the solar panels, the rollout solar arrays, this will be one of their first missions they've flown on. Not the first time they've ever flown, but one of the first times. They've initially been used on the International Space Station, and now they've been deployed on the station to generate power long term. But this will be their first use on a dedicated free-flying spacecraft. And on those solar arrays themselves, there's actually another experiment. There are a few solar cells on there that have been equipped with high-efficiency solar arrays, as well as reflectors. You can see there the silver portions are actually sort of like mirrors to reflect the sunlight onto the panels to attempt to increase their efficiency. So not only are we getting a new type of solar arrays, but we're also getting a new type of solar arrays with an experiment on them. So a lot of things happening here. But that's not all. There is also one more.
Wait.
But wait, there's more. There's actually a new type of high gain antenna on here, and that is actually testing new technologies to make a cheaper and simpler high gain antenna. And what is a high gain antenna, you may ask? Well, a high gain antenna is used to transmit a singular beam of data that can transmit very, very high bandwidth. So you can get a lot of data down very quickly, which is important for a very fast moving mission like this. You want to get the data down very quickly before it, for example, hits an asteroid. So this is a really good example here of how to get data down quick, and DART is a great test platform to have all of these technologies working together.
Excellent. And here's what I'm going to do. I was actually just looking at the website from the Johns Hopkins University Advanced or Applied Physics Laboratory. I'm going to put that link into chat if you want to read more about those. That link right there, I was NASA Spaceflight, is what we were just looking at. And it's a really cool resource I found a couple days ago in terms of all the different things going on with the mission. So anyways, we are still marching towards a launch here. It's currently T-minus 47 minutes before the launch. And today's launch is an instantaneous window. We got one chance, right?
We do. 10:21:02. So, yeah, 10:21:02 local time at Vandenberg, which is 6:21:02 UTC. Yes.
Gotcha. All right. So let's see if we can't go through and grab a couple questions out of chat. I see some questions coming into the queue here. And then really quickly, Bob and Michelle Murray, thank you so much for becoming a Capcom member, the membership program there.
Oh, nice.
Actually something we've been building out a lot lately. We're adding in more sort of perks for the membership program that allows people to support us on a monthly basis. Here on YouTube, there's a little join button if you're on the web app or mobile or whatever, and you should be able to not just subscribe to the channel, which is sort of like following the channel, but if you join as a member, there's a couple different perks you can get, all the way up to including a pre-release on some videos, a members Discord where there's honestly way too many channels to read a day that you'll never be able to keep up with everything that's going on there, and a couple other perks like emotes that you can use and that sort of stuff. So thank you so much for the support there, Bob and Michelle Murray. We appreciate you giving me an excuse to talk about the membership program. That's awesome. And then Greg Dietz. Greg Dietz says, great to hear Michael. Coffee money for him. He's going to need it out there, Greg, because last I heard his teeth were chattering. It's pretty cold out there, I think.
Ooh, it's cold like across all of the U.S. right now.
Yeah.
I feel.
It snowed here today.
Oh, did it really? Wow, nice.
And then Musical Wolves says, why are they not using a Falcon Heavy? I have the answer to that.
Well, they don't need it. So Didymos and Dimorphos. So Didymos is the primary asteroid, and Dimorphos is the moon or the moonlet. So Didymos is in a orbit that brings it very close to Earth. So it goes out to about 2.8 AU astronomical units from the sun, and then it comes into basically like 1.1, 1.09. So it doesn't cross Earth's orbit, which is good, which means it's a stable asteroid, so we can do this test on it and not accidentally mess ourselves up later on down the road. But because it comes so close, and because DART is such a small spacecraft, DART only weighs 610 kilograms itself, and Lichia Cube is 14 kilograms, so 624 kilograms overall is your launch mass. And we are talking about a Falcon 9 that is capable of launching several metric tons into a geostationary transfer orbit. This payload is so incredibly small, it's comical inside of the payload fairing because there it is. Yeah, it is comically small. So that does a couple of things, right? It's a light mass payload on a very powerful rocket like the Falcon 9. It does not have a ride along. It is the only passenger in it, which means basically all you have to do is reserve enough propellant in the second stage after you achieve your initial Earth parking orbit to do the Earth escape and heliocentric transfer burn to get the DART probe on its way to Didymos. And when you put all of that together, the Falcon 9 in its Falcon 9 configuration and not in a Falcon Heavy configuration can do this mission perfectly. going from Vandenberg as long as you land the first stage on the drone ship, which brings us to a question we're probably going to get, but we'll answer it now. It's such a small payload. Why isn't it doing a return to launch site? Because it all comes down to the amount of propellant you need to leave in the second stage to do that Earth escape burn and the transfer to heliocentric orbit. And with that, you have to deplete a lot of the propellant in the first stage, so you're going downrange to your drone ship.
I'm drawing.
You are, yeah.
I mean,
Dart
literally,
and nothing.
yeah,
Yes.
dart and nothing, and then at the bottom there's the adapter. That's a little sort of thing that it sits on at the
Yeah.
bottom.
Which
But,
is new, actually. It's
it
a
is.
smaller payload adapter today, specifically for smaller payloads like Dart. So it's a new payload adapter that is flying today.
So when you said it was comically small, Chris, you're not wrong. Like, a picture is worth 1,000 words here. Dart is tiny. You could literally host multiple parties in the payload fairing with Dart in there. So
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it is not the lightest, though, that a Falcon 9 has ever launched. I'm pretty sure that was Formosat 5, which was about a 550-ish kilogram Taiwanese satellite that was originally supposed to go on a Falcon 1 rocket and then ended up on a Falcon 9 out of Vandenberg. And yeah, it was 475 kilograms. So it's not the lightest the Falcon 9 has ever launched, but still comically small.
originally,
And actually,
you go ahead, Ian. This was supposed to be like a rideshare or something, wasn't it? It wasn't supposed to launch just by itself like this. It was supposed to piggyback off some other mission originally, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The Next C ion engine that Ian was talking about a bit earlier, it's not on there just to do the small little number of tests that it's now going to do. This was originally going to be dropped off in a geostationary transfer orbit, and then have to use its ion engine to very slowly spiral itself out into the correct intercept trajectory with Dimorphos and Dimorphos. And then when NASA put out the request for proposals for the launch vehicle for it, SpaceX came along and said, we'll do it as a dedicated mission for 69 mil out the door. And NASA went, sold, and did it as a dedicated mission because it is more efficient. It gets it there quicker. It allows the telescopes here on Earth to see it. It's just better to get it there quick. And that sort of meant that after that, the Next C ion engine is still going to do these demonstrations in deep space, but it's not going to be the, oh my gosh, we have to have it to get out of Earth orbit anymore type of engine.
Cool. Well, let's see here. I think that answered that question in detail. We also had JR coming through as a launch director. Thank you so much, JR, for the support. Launch director's way up there.
Oh, Ian, you were saying something a minute ago.
Oh, yeah. So we were talking about how Dart is one of the lightest payloads. We're actually going to be setting a record in about 3 weeks time. That was going to beat that. So SpaceX is going to be launching IXB. I've no idea what that stands for. The thing was supposed to launch on a Pegasus rocket, but SpaceX undercut them tremendously. They bid $50 million for that launch, which is pocket change. And that IXB weighs 325 kilograms. That is as much as like a small group of people.
Yeah,
and that is
small
going to
group
look
of people.
It's probably about as big as a few people, and it's gonna look comical inside Falcon 9's fairing. It's funny because it could have launched on Pegasus, which is a small sat launcher. I think it's even smaller than Electron. And
Pegasus is the thing that they drop off underneath the wing of the Northrop Grumman plane.
Yeah. And
hey, it's got a name. It's called Stargazer. It's the last flying L-1011. I'd like you to show it some respect. Thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
toss the ball into the air and Jack hits it out of the park. There you go.
But yeah, so Falcon 9 outbid a small sat launcher, and they got a dedicated launch for a 300 kilogram satellite on a rocket rated to launch 28 tons into orbit. Or sorry, 23 tons.
All right. do we have some questions here in the queue? Start going through a couple questions. We're at T-minus 38 minutes now.
I think we should, because right now at this point in the countdown, the launch director would be doing their virtual go no go poll, which is basically just the console operators click yes, I'm ready to proceed, or no, I'm not. We don't actually get to hear it ahead of the start of propellant loading at T-minus 35 minutes. So yeah, let's dive into some questions here.
All right. Let's see. Here's a question from Lego Flight Cams saying, is there any other rocket capable of this mission, or is it only Falcon 9? There's a lot of rockets capable physically of the mission, but from a cost perspective, maybe not. Is that a fair way to put it?
Yeah, that's probably fair. I mean, most rockets flying today, with the exception of maybe like Electron and Astra's rocket, most rockets flying today could launch this payload, but it just comes down to who had the availability, who's the cheapest, and SpaceX, I guess, checked all those boxes, and NASA. Plus, NASA is Falcon 9 has been proven to be reliable by NASA, so NASA would be inclined to use Falcon 9 since it's cheap and reliable.
Excellent. But I think a lot of other rockets could do it. Now, here's a question.
Oh yeah, Atlas and Delta could do it, certainly, yeah.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
No issue there.
They could do it. Could any of the small sat launchers do it? If this is only I don't think any of the small sat launchers can actually get this large of a spacecraft up. It's weird saying that this is a large spacecraft.
It's too large for any of the small sat launchers that are in existence right now, like Rocket Lab and Astra. They're maxing out at around the 500 to 550, 575 kilogram range, and DART itself is 610, 624 when you include the Lichia CubeSat. No, this could not have gone on any of the small sat launchers. Now, could a small sat launcher have done it? I mean, if the kinetic impact of DART itself could have been made small enough, potentially, but one of the things about this mission is, and the weird balancing act and the tricky balancing act that you have here, is the mass of the spacecraft has to be just right, and the velocity that it's impacting has to be just right. So it's sort of like a weird balance of, you need something heavy enough with enough mass to slam into these things to actually appreciably change their velocities enough to account for things you might not expect. So in that regard, I hate to say a definitive no, but probably not for what we needed this mission to be.
Gotcha.
I also, just really quick, want to shout out to Japan, because we mentioned ESA and Italy as contributors to this mission as well, and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency is also a contributor to this as well. So NASA, Europe, Italy, and Japan are the 4 international partners for this mission.
Excellent. Here is another question from Adrian Rivero saying, what made this mission more suited for West Coast versus Florida? So why are we going out of Vandenberg today instead of launching from the Cape?
Because Vandenberg's the best.
I'm going to mute Jack here. Let me just click on this button. And since we're having like an episode of Hee Haw here where he keeps sticking his head out a window in the side of the building, what's going on? Like, why are we flying out of Vandy instead of out of the Cape?
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Ian.
I was going to say, there are really like 2 main reasons. The first, and perhaps the most simple one, is it's possible. The trajectory is possible to reach from Vandenberg, but that in itself doesn't really matter. It's more that Vandenberg isn't used as often as Cape Canaveral. So at Cape Canaveral, you have to work around other SpaceX launches. You have to work around U.S. government launches, Atlas launches, Delta launches, anything else that can take up the ranges, take up the range for the day. But at Vandenberg, where you only get a handful of launches per year, it is much easier to slot in a launch such as DART. And also with DART, while it may have backup launch opportunities, its window closes in February. Its launch window is done in February. So if, say, something goes wrong and you have to delay it a long time, you might not even get the mission off the ground. But at Vandenberg, where there's so few launches, you have a lot of opportunities in case delays happen, in case there's issues. You don't have to work around other payloads.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because case in point, exactly what you were just saying, Ian, the orbital inclination for this mission is 64.7 degrees, which is reachable out of the Kennedy Space Center going northeast with a dogleg trajectory in there. And this mission will actually perform a small dogleg maneuver because it has to avoid portions of Southern California and Baja as it goes out. So it actually can't go perfectly into the 64.7 degree inclination, so it will have to do a dogleg maneuver as well. So it's exactly what you were saying there. It came down to this is a much more stable and date certain range to launch off of.
Excellent. It's almost like there's not as much traffic out of this range, so it's easier to get yourself a launch slot, and you don't have to shuffle around with all the other rockets that are launching the other types of missions, huh?
Bingo. Yeah.
And that's exactly.
Go ahead. I bet you we were going to say the exact same thing. Go for it.
I was going to say that's why Rocket Lab chose Wallops over Cape Canaveral because, like Vandenberg, there's not many launches from Wallops, so they can really get most of the range themselves.
Not what I was going to say, actually. This is the exact same reason that United Launch Alliance chose to launch the Mars Insight mission from Vandenberg instead of Cape Canaveral as well, and chose to launch it from Vandy because of the schedule certainty.
Very cool. Instead of messing around with all those pesky Starlink launches, they just said nothing launches from here. We'll go ahead and go out this way. Here is
I feel like
question.
Jack is reaching for his microphone now.
Oh, he's muted. Here is a question from Cruiser Frank saying, when will the impact take place? Next summer? How long is it going to take the spacecraft to get there and actually crash into the asteroid?
Yeah, so October of 2022 is when it is currently set for the collision with Dimorphos. So it will take it'll take just under 11 months to get there. About 10 and a half months to get there.
I feel like you need to say Dimorphos differently. It sounds like the name of a supervillain or something.
Well, to be fair, it does, and this is why, since the primary asteroid is called Didymos, I really want to call it Didymoon. But which is sort of its loving nickname, because we didn't know Dimorphos existed at first. We actually found it in preparation for this mission. When it swung by Earth, and this is what sort of made this a great candidate to an even better candidate to go do. And they actually did call it Didymoon for a while before Dimorphos became the official name. Yeah.
Oh, here is one for Ian, Bob, and Michelle Murray asking, how will the ion engines be tested on this flight?
Yeah, so like Chris discussed before, the mission parameters changed. It's no longer being dropped off in a geostationary transfer orbit. It's being sent directly onto an Earth escape trajectory. But luckily and kind of unluckily, Falcon 9's second stage is not perfectly accurate. It's not going to shut down and then DART's going to instantly slam into the asteroid with no maneuvers, nothing like that. It's going to get DART to get pretty darn close to the asteroid, but DART itself will have to maneuver little bits here and there to fine-tune its trajectory and ensure that it slams right into Dimorphos. So the ion engine will be used for those burns, and those will be good to check it out. Now, it won't be getting as much use as it would have had they gone with the original mission plan, but that'll still be adequate enough to get enough testing in to certify the engine and determine how it operates.
Gotcha. So the Falcon 9 second stage is giving it the majority of the push on the way to the asteroid, right?
Yeah, it's like how your car will drive you into your driveway, but your car won't drive you into your living room unless you drive your car wrong.
Unless you're really bad at driving.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go with like a plane. Like you take a plane to another state, but then you get in a rental car or not driving into people's living room.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's worth noting too that is exactly how every mission works, right? Like the second stages of rockets, even the most efficient upper stage and most precise upper stage will still leave you with some dispersions in between where you're actually dropped off and the tweaked trajectory that you actually need to be in. So very, very common, especially on these interplanetary missions, for there to be some mid-course corrections.
For SpaceX launches, maybe.
For what?
I said for SpaceX launches, maybe. Tori, we love you. We love your infographics you put out. Um,
Well,
I hope you
we
caught the
do like
tone in my
that.
voice there.
No, we love the Atlas, but even those payloads have to do mid-course corrections after they are launched.
And it looks like we're getting some more significant venting off the rocket there. And that is good. That's a sign that they're moving forward with the fuel loading, it looks like. T-minus 28 minutes now for the NASA launch of the DART, the literal mission that is going to crash into an asteroid intentionally, that double asteroid redirect test. And that's a Falcon 9 rocket you see. This is SpaceX launching this Falcon 9 out at Vandenberg in California. Vandenberg Space Force Base? Space Force Base. Air Force Base was a lot easier to say, I'll tell you that much.
Right.
That's what's going on here. T-minus 28 minutes, and it is an instantaneous window. So it's either going to go tonight or it's not going to go tonight. It's not one of those long 4-hour windows where hold, scrub, move back, da 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 da. It's either going in 28 minutes or it's not. So if you're interested in seeing a rocket launch, I guarantee you won't have to wait around long before you know whether or not it's going tonight.
And hopefully this is a moot point in 27.5 minutes. But if there is not a launch today, there are daily opportunities out through, or more or less daily opportunities range pending out through the 15th of February for this particular mission, and the launch time would advance by 1 minute each day. So if we have to come back and do this tomorrow, we would be here at 1:20 for a liftoff instead of 1:21.
Good deal. Let me grab a couple super chats and stuff real quick. Starship, thank you for joining as a Red Team member. We appreciate you. 714 Metal Detecting says it's not much, but thanks for all you guys do. 714, it adds up. It definitely adds up. Thank you so much for the support. And also, hey, thank you for being here and listening to my bad jokes. It's late. It's 1 a.m. my time. I'm trying to stay awake here and tell you all some jokes in the meantime. D'Artagnan Gribble, appreciate the support as well. Anthony Donadio, I'm going to go with Donadio, says, don't forget to smash that like button. I think that's what the kids are saying these days, isn't it? Bill Motke,
just like Dart will smash into Dimorphos.
geez.
Smash that like button.
Oh my gosh, really?
But not at 6.6 kilometers per second. That would be bad.
That would be really bad for your keyboard, I think.
Yes.
Here is one. This is actually a great question from Bill Machi saying, does Vandenberg have public viewing, or do you just hang around the fences? Would like to see a launch. There are a couple opportunities to see launches from Vandenberg. You got to pay attention. Sometimes they open and close different roads around the area, but there is a road that goes up towards Surf Beach, and there are some public viewing sort of pullouts there. The trick is you can't actually see the launch pads from those closer in viewing points. You just sit there and then all of a sudden a rocket comes over the hill, which is really an amazing thing to see, but while you're sitting there, you don't have anything else to look at. Sometimes there's like a cauliflower field off to one side or something. And then there's a couple other elevated viewing spots. There's a local spot. When I went out there, what I did is I walked into the diner in the morning and I said, hey, I'm from out of town. I want to see a rocket launch. Where do you go? And the folks at the diner said the words Harris Grade Road, and you look that up on a map, and that's where Jack is right now, actually. It's sort of an overhang, overlook road on the side of a mountain. You know how they're sort of carved out of the side of a mountain? That is where I think all the locals go, but there's very, very limited space there. So
Yeah, there's like you said, you can get really close. You can get like I think within 3 miles, but the rocket is just a mountain range type situation. From the right spot on Ocean and Renwick, that's kind of the intersection that is the best area and the closest. You can sort of see the tip of the fairing, but you can't see the rocket on the pad.
Right.
Harris Grade, you can see the rocket on the pad, but you cannot see the base of the rocket. That's the trick there. But you can see the sort of the rocket before it lifts off, and you are higher up, so you have a better chance of potentially, maybe, hopefully, avoiding the fog. Although
I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you right there because that's what somebody told me. And I had the opportunity to go to the press site or go to Harris Grade, and they're like, well, if you go to Harris Grade, you could be above the fog so you don't see it. I went to Harris Grade, and I could barely see my hand in front of my face, man. I didn't even hear.
To be fair, that just sounds like a Wednesday at Vandenberg.
I didn't even hear. I went there for the last Delta II launch, the ISAT-2, and I was so excited to see the last Delta II launch. I didn't even hear the last Delta II launch. Like, I had no clue that it even launched. We were up on Harris Grade, and we could not see anything. Not even like a bright, slight glow off in the distance. So I didn't see anything that day. So anyways, it happens at Vandenberg. Hopefully tonight is looking good, knock on wood. The weather is going to continue to hold. Speaking of which, how's the weather looking right now? What was the last weather update there, Chris?
Yeah, the last weather update was a 90% chance of go forecast. That was the final pre-launch weather forecast for today. And earlier as well, SpaceX indicated that there were really no concerns for weather for this evening. And if we should need tomorrow, that probability of go forecast for weather goes to a terrifying 100% go. So let's go today with 90.
Yeah, you're not supposed to. That's like bad luck to say 100% go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's a quick question from McMahon. Is this launching to the south or to the north out of Vandenberg?
To the south. You can only go south out of Vandenberg.
Gotcha. So going to the south, and you said it had to do a little bit of a dogleg to miss parts of California or something?
Yeah, so the available launch inclinations that you can get to from Vandenberg run a pretty large range, but 64.7, which is where this one needs to get into, is just a little bit too low to get to directly from Vandenberg on a straight line. So the Falcon 9 will go south as far it will aim as far to the southeast as it can when it comes off the launch pad, and then it will just continue on that trajectory that keeps it far enough away from the populated areas of Southern California. And then once stage separation occurs, the second stage will do the slight dogleg maneuver to get into the final 64.7 degree inclination.
Gotcha. And let's see here. Another one, when's the next launch? Oh, we just talked about this one. The next launch opportunity if today is scrubbed is tomorrow right now, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah, if for whatever reason today's were to scrub, we would go to a launch on Thursday, November 25th at 6:20 UTC, which would be Wednesday the 24th at 10:20 p.m. local time at Vandenberg.
Gotcha. All right. We answered this one as well. Kerbal guy, will the second stage do a dogleg after SEP? After SEP from the first stage, not after spacecraft SEP. But yeah, it is trying to avoid some of the parts of Southern California there. Let's see. Oh, well, somebody said, explain what a dogleg is.
Oh, great question. That's a great question. So basically, when rockets launch, the most efficient way that they can do it is to just roll onto a particular heading and just basically keep going straight. The straighter your trajectory, the most efficient you've got. But sometimes you can't do that for these like particular little orbits that we're trying to get into from Vandenberg at 64.7. So because you can't, so basically a dogleg is you go one direction for a particular time, and Das is going to draw this.
Don't do that.
Yeah, you can't go there, right?
Not allowed. So this is Vandenberg, right in this area is Vandenberg.
Yes. So sometimes you have to do the dogleg, and basically all that is you go straight downrange from Vandenberg for as far as you can, and then you kind of hook a little bit. In this case, it would be a hook to the left, and you go a little bit closer toward land. Exactly. And that hook is the dogleg.
Yeah, like this part right here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to draw the rest of the dog. But so again, this is not the exact trajectory, just so you know. This is me sort of exaggerating it. But this is why the drone ship is actually down there off the coast of Baja California. Isn't the drone ship somewhere down in this area, right? Let's see, somewhere down that way. I don't know exactly where it is.
Yes, off the coast of Baja California. Yes.
Yep. And so the first stage is actually going to try to land there on the drone ship, and stage 2 is going to do that dog leg and get it into the exact inclination it's looking for. And also, if you look at the live rocket view, this is why we never take the live view of the rocket off the screen. We are getting the T-minus 20-minute vent right now. So less dogleg, more venting. Let's see here. And that is the completely normal, expected thing during a normal fueling operation for the Falcon 9. We expect that to happen at T-minus 20 minutes, roughly. I think it's a little bit more than T-minus 20 minutes. But if it's T-minus 20 minutes and we see that big plume of vapor coming off the side of the rocket, that means that things are going nominally here. So now under 20 minutes, actually under 19 minutes, before SpaceX attempts to launch the DART, Double Asteroid Redirect Test mission, the itty-bitty spacecraft with the phenomenal cosmic powers of crashing into an asteroid with the hopes to redirect its trajectory just a little bit. Let's see here. Cultured, thank you so much, says let Jack speak. Hashtag Jack Buyer fan page. Why did I read that one? I could have just ignored that one and not even said that out loud. We appreciate the support
I missed what
there.
you said, but I heard fan page, so I appreciate it. Thank whoever that was.
And I think it's KTU lured, not cultured. I think it's different than what I said the first time, but we appreciate the support there. Stephen Childress, thank you for the support as well. Here's one real quick. Joseph Pistrito, maybe? Says, is the first stage landing or being expended? This is a drone ship landing. We've got the drone ship downrange that's recently moved to the West Coast to support these sort of operations, but they are going to be attempting that landing. Let's see. A lot of things coming through here. Doc Watson says it's 6 a.m. in the UK and you're only on the second coffee. What's keeping you guys going? Rockets.
Coffee.
Coffee for Chris. Rockets for me. Ian?
I think mine is being on Thanksgiving break and getting up at checks my watch 11:30 this morning.
Wow. See,
Anyway,
I didn't actually set my alarm for very early this morning because normally I roll out of bed and check Starbase Live first thing, and I did not set my check Starbase Live alarm because I was going to be supporting this mission tonight. So, hey, I feel you there with the sleeping in a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, actually,
But who also has to be up in a few hours for the pre-Shaw docking node launch to the ISS? Raise your hand. Anyone else with me? Anyone
Y'all
else? Bueller,
fun.
Bueller.
That's fine. enjoy that.
Yeah.
Let's see here. We've got John Cloffer saying, will the sensor data from the launch and fingers crossed intercept be open source available in raw format for the international community to access? So, I haven't heard anything like that. Have y'all?
I don't know. I know where this is stemming from, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is sort of stemming from the fact that like a lot of the astrophysics missions and telescopes do, like Hubble and stuff like that. Like everything is out there for everyone to see.
yeah.
But DART isn't. Oh, I mean that's very interesting because there could be. I mean, because DART itself is not all that impressive of a spacecraft, but what it's doing could be, and I don't know if they'd want all of that out there right away. What are your thoughts, Ian?
Well, I'm thinking, so what might happen is possibly sorry, I'm blanking on the term. Whoever the mission leader, whatever that fancy term for the mission leader is.
Principal investigator.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Chris. The principal investigator and the team may publish the results in a journal. An academic journal, maybe a few years or a few months down the road. I'm not sure. It depends. I'm trying to recall. It was on the tip of my tongue how the New Horizons mission data worked.
That's exactly the mission I was trying to pull from my head. Yeah.
Because Alan Stern is so open about it.
Right. And I think the other thing with this is like we're also not going to have a lot of the information right away. Like a lot of that, like what did it actually do is going to come from Hera in 2027, when the ESA follow-up mission, the part 2 for this, and the Hera probe gets there. So that's also a little complicating factor is the timeline of when we might actually have all of this data.
Yeah, it's going to be a while till we get that, and plus it's going to take like a long time to get data, not just from Hera but from the ground-based observatories as well. It's not going to be like, oh, we had an impact, all right, let's get the Keck telescope, let's get Hubble, let's get these telescopes going right now, and then an hour later this is what happened. It's going to be a long process of months, if not years, to even begin to get an idea of what happened from DART.
All right.
Yeah. But on the flip side, because we really don't know what's going to happen when it hits, like we have an idea, but if we're wrong about what the composition of them is, or we're wrong about the density, like the impact could do something interesting as well that we're just not ready for or prepared for. So yeah, very, 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 and at which case having the data out there for everyone could be really beneficial.
And real quick, we got a picture
there's
from
the drone ship.
there.
Ooh.
Yeah. So hopefully that stays live for the landing. Sometimes we got some spotty comms out there for that, but it looks like they're giving us pictures of the drone ship, which is nice.
Woohoo!
Always good to see.
It is. It definitely is. Let's see here. Where are we at? T-minus 13 minutes. Let's keep watching the rocket from multiple angles here. How's that? And it does look like, pay no attention to the fact that the clocks don't match there. That's something that we'll deal with as we get a little bit closer. But let's continue answering some questions here, shall we? Here's a good one. Who wants this one? What booster is being used today? And follow-up question, what other missions did it launch?
Ian, you want to take that one? Yeah.
Who wants?
Yeah, will do. So what we're looking at here is Falcon 9 first stage booster B1063. As the name suggests, it's the 63rd Falcon 9 booster built. Now this booster here is relatively young in terms of flight rate. It's only flown 2 missions before, so this will be its third. Previously, it flew on its first flight from this very launch pad, actually, the Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich mission, which was which still is, a Earth imaging and weather satellite. On the second mission, it was actually towed back to Cape Canaveral to launch Starlink L-28, which is one of the final missions of the first shell of Starlink. After that, it was towed back to Vandenberg, and we're here looking at it right now ahead of its third mission.
All right. So the third mission for this booster here. I'm literally just going through as many questions as we can. So many people asking so many good questions here. And I'm going to see how many I can get. Let's see here. Do we know why DART's Ion engine is an upgrade over previous designs? Like Dawn, the Ion engine used on Dawn. Is this something we haven't flown before? Is it something we used for Dawn and then we came up with some improvements for it? Or
It's really the latter. It's new improvements in ion engine technology, and exactly what types of missions they can be used for. So one of the purposes of the next C on this mission is basically this is its flight certification for NASA to get comfortable going like, okay, we can use this on much more high priority, like high priority science missions, and know that it will work because we've been able to test it on DART, which kind of needs it but doesn't need it anymore, and it's a low risk to test it on here. But it's really just, Dawn was launched back in 2007. So that type of ion technology was based on technology 21 years ago, and technology has just increased and gotten better since then. So that's the purpose of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's specifically this is the next. I'm sorry to add on, Chris. I love ion engines.
Go for it. Yeah.
I'm fascinated by ion engines. So DOS, if I start talking too much, just mute me and continue on. But yeah, so the next C engine is specifically to be made. It was funded by NASA and Aerojet Rocketdyne to be a commercial engine. So other companies can buy these engines from Aerojet Rocketdyne to fly on their satellites, on their interplanetary missions. It's designed to be a universal ion engine. It's got a lot more thrust. It's much more efficient and more powerful and longer lasting than Dawn's engine. And actually, with the first prototype, I'm just spitting out so many facts here. This is my last one, I promise. With the prototype Next C engine, they tested it and did a 5-year straight endurance run of it. They had the engine running for 5 years straight.
What?
And it was perfectly fine. I am not kidding you. They announced it out of the blue in 2010. They were like, hey, this engine over here, it ran for 5.5 years, and we're flying it on DART.
What?
Like,
how do you fuel that? Like, you just have an infinite amount of... You just keep filling up the fuel tank over and over again, or...?
Well, the thing is with ion engines, they're extremely efficient, so you don't need that much xenon gas. Like, I think Dawn had like 700 kilograms of xenon, which is really light in terms of a fuel load for a satellite. It just takes a lot of electricity.
Yeah, I did that in Kerbal. The burns take forever when you use the ion engine in Kerbal.
Yeah. You're looking at it, and it's like it's been burning for 5 minutes, and my orbit's barely changed.
Because we like our video game burns in Kerbal. It's like, turn on the engine! And then all the stars are going past it, like the Millennium Falcon going into warp.
And it's
going
funny
to
'cause in
hyperspace.
the Kerbal ion engine is actually about like 1,000 times
Yeah.
more powerful, just to make it so you're not sitting for 5 years trying to burn and get to the moon.
Oh, jeez. Let's grab a couple more. Wow, what? Hang on a second. Look at this. We just got a super chat from Parker Imrie. I'm going to go with Parker Imrie, saying, after many foiled attempts, I'm finally at my first launch. Thanks to all NSF for inspiration, and special shout out to Michael for next space flight and for some viewing tips. This is awesome. It sounds like we've got a viewer who's out there watching their first launch, and they tossed in a $200 super chat.
Wow. Thank you, Parker.
That's insane.
I mean, that is, I just looked up and popped all of a sudden. Parker, thank you so much. I'm going to tell you that coming up shortly, you should just go to audio-only mode. Don't watch the stream anymore, right? Just be ready for the launch to go and experience it yourself. I don't know, like everybody wants to take pictures and everybody goes, oh, I brought a camera and I'm going to do this, that, and the other, and I'm going to share it with grandma or whatever. Yeah, if it's your first launch you've seen in person, I think everybody on the NASA spaceflight team would say, put down the phone, put down the camera, just listen to the stream. I mean, don't put us away. But experience it yourself. Like, experience what's going on out there, because that is definitely a very cool thing to make it out to Vandenberg for your first rocket launch. Thank you so much for the support there, but even more, thank you so much for being part of the community here. That is awesome. Good luck.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you made it out. And yeah, I can't agree enough. Just watch the launch. You can look at your phone any other time. You can only watch your first launch once.
That's true. Yep. That's absolutely true.
Seeing a launch in person is unbelievable.
And real quick, I see this question coming through a lot, like, where can I see this launch from? Some people asking, can you see it from Northern California? Remember, this is going to the south, so maybe a little bit to the north of Vandenberg. You might be able to see it go up and then go away from you, but I don't think I would expect it to be visible all the way up in Northern California. Don't know exactly where people are there.
San Fran is, and again, this is highly dependent on weather conditions too, but San Fran area, the Bay Area, maybe. Yeah.
I doubt it. It's pretty far north from here, but if you're in LA or San Diego or anywhere south of Pittsburgh and you have clear skies, you have a really good... I've seen Falcon 9s from Los Angeles, no problem, and not just when they were a jellyfish launch, so... Yeah, you definitely have a good bet. I should have saved the Flight Club overlay. It's a really good way to figure that out, but my bad. I didn't do that on this.
Yeah, I'm just drawing there. If you're in the LA area, we got Long Beach in there, San Diego. If you look out over the ocean, you should be able to see it going by, weather permitting, of course, clouds and fog and that sort of thing. It is going to go past you, and I would imagine that you would be able to see that. You might even, if you're further south, be able to see like the re-entry burn from San Diego and stuff like that. But that's just going to be a few seconds, a point in the light in the sky, sort of a little bit of fire coming down. And I don't think unlikely we'd see a landing burn from anywhere for this launch. But up in Northern California, not sure. San Francisco, pretty far away there. And anyways, I think that's what we'd call for the launch. They didn't put out like a viewing thing. Like sometimes the providers will put out like a, oh, here's circles and at T minus or T plus 30. No, shouldn't see it at T minus anything. T plus 60 seconds, T plus 120 seconds. Like the ring gets bigger. So,
hey,
anyways,
I'm going to jump off comms as we are getting really close. So I'll see you guys on the flip side. I hope everybody has a great launch.
All right, thanks, Jack. Good luck out there. Again, folks, that was the voice of Jack Beyer. He is out there at one of the public viewing spots up on a roadside about 11 miles away from the pad. We don't have a live feed from him tonight. He's going to be taking some video and some stills that I'm sure you'll see on his Twitter later this evening. We'll probably see if we can't show some of them on the stream here. And then also out there in the field, we've got Michael Baylor. He is operating this camera that we're seeing right now. He's going to be tracking the launch there. And just over the comms net, heard that the spacecraft is now on internal power. I heard from SpaceX. So
Very good. That's what
less
we
than
like
5
to
minutes.
hear.
Yep. Everything's tracking along. Now, I want to make a quick technical note. We do have a couple feeds and things like that from NASA and SpaceX. However, our cameras have a lot less latency than their cameras. And what that means is something happens in the real world, and then the little electrons get sent over the internet, and they get to us, and then we package them up and we send them on to you with our voices overlaid. And our cameras come in about 5 seconds shy of live. So it happens in the real world, and you see it maybe 7 seconds later. The NASA feeds that we're getting and the SpaceX feed that we're getting seems to be delayed about 45 to 50 seconds tonight. So it's quite possible that we might see this rocket launch twice. I think if Michael's tracking it, we're just going to stick with Michael's camera there at liftoff. But just bear with me. If we lose that camera or something like that and we have to cut to one of the SpaceX or NASA feeds, then we will. We may see some events twice just because there's so much latency coming from the NASA channel. And we just heard a call from NASA as well saying that they're go for launch. I'm listening in on the comms net. I'm not piping it all in because some of it's not stuff that we need to hear. But there was a go for launch from NASA for the DART mission at T-minus 3 minutes here.
Very exciting.
Fantastic. Here we go.
Yep.
And you can see the transporter erector there, that big strong back pulling back and away from the Falcon 9. It pulls back farther from the Falcon 9 at Vandenberg because it is the original transporter erector design. The ones that we're more used to seeing at Pad A and Pad 40 at the Cape sort of do a really big throwback maneuver right at liftoff, but this one will not. So if you haven't seen a mission from Vandenberg but you're noticing that the transporter erector is doing something different, it is supposed to on from this particular launch site.
Excellent. And from Michael's perspective, you can see sort of the darkened transporter erector. It's actually coming towards Michael in his view here. So when this goes, you'll actually see the flames of the rocket behind the transporter erector, and the rocket will clear it and go on up. But here we are coming up on T-minus 2 minutes now. And Chris, Ian, if y'all want to do a little bit of talking about what we're expecting here, I am doing our final technical things.
Yeah, definitely can do. So coming up in the final minute of the count, we will have a Falcon 9 on internal call, which is basically Falcon 9's onboard flight computers taking control of the vehicle for flight. That venting that you are seeing is the final purging of the transporter erector, getting it ready for liftoff so there are no residual propellants inside of it. And that is to prevent any accidental ignitions of propellants inside, so that's totally normal. Final go for launch will come at 45 seconds, and then we will have ignition of the 9 Merlin 1D engines at T-minus 3 seconds, and a liftoff at T0 for the beginning of the DART mission. And here we are at 1 minute and counting to this very, very important mission to change an asteroid's trajectory and orbit, all in the name of planetary protection for ourselves should we ever have to do this as a species for an asteroid that was coming at Earth. So
all right, and
now. Yep, go ahead, Dos.
Michael making some camera changes there to see how we can expose for the rocket flame. So the camera's darkened down. We don't trust auto settings, but here we go, y'all.
So at this point, Falcon 9 is fully pressurized for flight, and Falcon 9 has control of the countdown.
15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff. Falcon 9 with the DART mission on the way to humanity's first ever planetary defense test mission. Vehicle is pitching downrange.
And you could hear the rumbling starting to fade
Yeah.
there as Falcon 9 heads downrange already, 13 kilometers in altitude, traveling. And you can see the speed there increasing as well, about 1,700 kilometers per second right now. Gorgeous initial liftoff of the DART mission from Vandenberg on the Falcon 9 rocket. And now pretty good view of from the first stage as it ascends there, Das.
Look at this. I'm going to pull that
Oh,
audio.
Wow.
But for
Look
just a second there, look at that.
Wow.
I love this part of the flight when she's in the upper atmosphere and you can see all those 9 engines together when the air pressure is just allowing that plume to expand.
Yep. You can literally
look at
see
that.
that there's less air pressure up there. There's not enough air pressure to hold the rocket in a little pencil exhaust. And look at Michael with the track here.
Look at this.
Look at the
That
colors.
is beautiful.
Oh,
Wow.
freaking gorgeous.
Beautiful.
So we should have a few more seconds left in the booster burn here.
Yep.
And there we
here
go.
That's Amico. I'm gonna watch it here. Let's see.
Dang.
It's up there somewhere.
From a tracking perspective, this is really hard when you have to keep guessing how quick to move the camera.
There we go.
Yep.
So from the SpaceX feed there, we can see separation, the booster separating from the upper stage, and an ignition of that second stage engine.
Wow.
Which is
And look at-
also what we want to see. Look at
Look at this.
that.
Michael's
at
got
the-
it too.
Oh, sweet.
The
Sweet.
little point of light there heading on out.
And if you look on the first stage camera, you can see the lights in the background. Those are cities. I'm not too familiar with California's geography, so I don't know what cities those are, but those are cities. Ooh.
Look
And
at
frame
this.
separation.
That's a big empty fairing.
Yeah. There it is. There's DART.
It was.
Hi. Give it a little pat on his head and send it off with his lunchbox.
Teeny tiny
Right.
spacecraft going to slam into an asteroid. We're
Yeah,
not kidding
Ian.
about
So
that.
that would have been looking back at the Lompoc area and down near like down at Santa Barbara, and heading down toward Los Angeles would have been the cities down
Ah.
that we would have seen, but not quite LA, but down toward Santa Barbara. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Excellent. So we see the second stage engine continuing to burn here. The first stage is continuing back down on a ballistic trajectory towards the drone ship. Going to be attempting that landing here in just a bit as the second stage continues on its way to orbit. Again, the first stage gets it sort of going, and the second stage gets it going fast enough that it misses the Earth when it falls back down again. But what you just saw, that was the launch so far, still in the middle of it, of the NASA DART, the Double Asteroid Redirect Test, our first, what did they say? They said the first planetary defense mission, where we're going to be testing our capability to redirect an asteroid by crashing a spaceship into it. I'm not even kidding about that. That is what this mission is. The little probe on board is supposed to crash into an asteroid, and we are going to measure how much we can actually change the orbit of that asteroid by, well, crashing into it. I don't know how else to say it. Kinetically impacting it, right, y'all?
Yeah, no, exactly that. Like there are no science instruments on onboard DART. It has a camera for navigation, it has solar arrays, and it has an ion engine and a communications dish. Now we are testing things in all of those, in all of those things that I just mentioned, but they're not science experiments. So yeah, this is literally just launching a projectile, a very smart projectile, but launching a projectile at an asteroid and hitting it.
I'd say the nose of the spacecraft is sort of the science instrument. It's like, I'm going to boop my nose into this asteroid at 6 kilometers per second, and let's do some science. How's that sound?
Yes, indeed. Yes, the science comes after the impact. Yes.
There you go. Hey, folks, this is what we do here on the NASA Spaceflight channel. If you haven't heard of us before, this is the first time you've heard us. We're not NASA actual. We're not like the launch company. We are a group of space enthusiasts. We're an official media outlet. We're accredited press with NASA and SpaceX and all the other places. But this is what we do here on the channel. If you like our commentary, if you like the sort of Q&A, maybe we spice it up or keep it a little bit more interesting than some of the other very official channels sometimes. you know how to get back here if you want. You can click on the sub button, follow along, maybe turn on the notifications. If we go live, I guarantee you it's because we've made the decision there's something we think would be cool to share with you. So if you want, go ahead, click the sub button here this evening as we continue to watch the second stage on that Falcon 9 do its burn. We should be coming up on an entry burn here now. And that is where the spacecraft, the actual first stage, not the spacecraft, but the first stage, the booster, is going to try to slow itself down and light its engines. And it looks like we've got...
Speaking of...
Yep, right on time.
Oh, almost like you were looking at a timeline, DOS.
No, come on. Don't give out all my secrets or anything like that.
But you can see that entry burn drastically slowing the first stage down. The velocity indicator on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, as well as the altitude indicator for the first stage on the right-hand side is the same for the second stage as it continues onward to orbit. But this is one of my favorite burns because it's entry burn, so it's using fire to fight fire as as the stage comes into the dense lower atmosphere. But entry burn did its job and shut down. So the next thing that we're looking for, we will have orbit insertion coming up here in about 30 seconds, just after the 8-minute mark into the flight. And then the first stage landing burn should start just around 8.5 minutes into the flight, with a landing just before the 9-minute mark of that first stage. So we'll should be seeing orbit insertion here within about 15 seconds.
All right. Hey, just look at the numbers changing. Booster is down under 2,000, and the actual upper stage is at 25,000. So one continuing on its way to orbit, and the other one, well, hopefully going all the way down to 0 when it lands on the drone ship.
And here we go.
Oh, you can actually see the dogleg visualized there. How stage 2 deviated from stage 1 just a little bit. That is the dogleg that I was very poorly trying to draw earlier. Let's see if we get a feed from the drone ship.
Hopefully we get one from the booster itself.
Yeah.
But looks like we might not.
Oh, we're getting some pixels. We're getting some grid fin action.
Ooh, okay.
There's the drone ship.
Oh,
Look at this! Oh, so close with the signal there. Let's see if we get a confirmation of a landing. Just standing by. Showing us the upper stage engine. Looks like
Do you wait for the cheers, or do you hear them call it out first? You know.
Yeah.
And this is not too unusual. We do lose signal very often during stage 1 landing because of the vibrations of the stage.
Let's see. We saw the landing legs actually disconnect. I just got an announcement on the NASA channel, it sounds like.
About what?
They did not give any information about the landing, saying that they were waiting for confirmation of that, but the mission continuing on with the second stage. SpaceX has also cut their host camera there, but we're going to continue standing by and see if we don't get an audio update. And if anybody sees anything else that I might miss, please let me know.
Copy. Do we have any questions we want to take while we wait for that confirmation? We wait for as they head through the coast phase.
Absolutely. We can certainly get something out of the chat. Again, y'all, the second stage is continuing on. We got that Seco 1, that engine shut down. It's going to coast for about 20 minutes, so that is nominal. Again, primary mission, the spacecraft continuing on its way to orbit, and all that's looking good. Like I said, about 20 minutes before we'll get a relight there, but still waiting for confirmation from SpaceX on whether or not they had that booster land successfully. We had a video cut out right there as we saw the landing legs deploy on the booster. But we'll continue listening. We'll continue listening and see what sort of update we get. Here's a question, Chris and Ian. We'll start kicking some questions back through here. Do all the Falcon 9 rockets use the same kind of propellant? So on the Falcon 9, I think Falcon 9 uses the same sort of propellant across the board, unless they've got a Dragon on top, right?
Yeah, so all Falcon rockets, Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, they all use both kerosene and liquid oxygen as their main propellants. That goes for the first stage and the second stage. So across the board, always the same propellants on all of the Falcon rockets. The Dragon spacecraft do use different propellants, but in terms of rockets, they all use the same propellants.
All right. And let's see
So
here.
Chris is saying that the video cut ahead, but SpaceX does confirm the landing on Of Course I Still Love You.
All right, so we did get audio confirmation that it landed.
Yeah, his tweet says Falcon 9 B1063.3 lands on SpaceX's drone ship. Of Course I Still Love You. Video cut out ahead of landing, but confirmed by SpaceX.
All right, good deal. So we did get a confirmation from SpaceX that we have a booster on the drone ship, but we just don't have a video feed of that right now.
Yes, that is apparently the case. But yes, it landed.
All right. Let's see here. Ian or Chris, do either of y'all have the question queue up? Could you help grab a couple of those real quick for me?
Yeah, I got it here.
Okay, go for it, Ian. Yeah.
I will switch over to the host panel. Yeah, so let's see. We had a question here from J-Trains here. They were asking how many times has NASA, there's a bit of a misspelling here, has NASA's LSP or Launch Services Program used a reused first stage? And that's a good question because this is actually the first time that a NASA Launch Services mission has used a reused Falcon 9 first stage. Stage 1 reuse has become very common now, but this is the first time, and NASA using a reused first stage really shows their confidence and their belief that the first stages are very reliable after they've been used before. So that's very interesting to see, and this is the first use of a reused first stage for NASA's Launch Services Program.
And it makes sense a little bit too, right, Ian? I mean, if the boosters can be trusted and are trusted in multiple flights with launching people into low Earth orbit, which Crew 2, Crew 3, and Inspiration 4 have all done at this point, if you can put people on top of them, you can put your science payloads on top of them.
Yep.
Yeah, we've cleared the hurdle of importance with people, on that one. Yeah.
Yep. And we got a question from Air Command Rockets asking how big is the asteroid that DART is going to hit? Well, the asteroid Dimorphos. How big is that, Chris?
Yeah, so Dimorphos itself is about 5 million tons is its mass. So it's roughly the size of one of the Great Pyramids at Giza.
Very interesting.
Yes. Now let me actually get you what it actually is. Yes, but so that is Dimorphos. Here we go. Yes, so Dimorphos itself has. Oh, come on. Where are you? Dimorphos itself is 170 meters in diameter. And that is about the size of the objects that we would be worried about. So that's another reason why this was sort of chosen. Because the parent is about 780-ish meters in diameter, and that would be Didymos. But Dimorphos at 170 meters is about what we'd be looking at for a kinetic deflection type asteroid situation.
Gotcha. And an asteroid the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza, is that big for an asteroid? Is that small for an asteroid? It's big for people, but how is it for asteroids?
It's an asteroid we would definitely have a problem with. And it's definitely an asteroid that we would not want to be entering Earth's atmosphere because a significant amount of it would survive and impact. So, in terms of asteroids, I mean, it's not the biggest that we've ever had out there, and obviously Dimorphos is bigger at the roughly 780 meter diameter. Um, but again, it's in that class of size that we're really concerned with, because these are the types of sizes at 170 meters. As good as our telescopes are, and as good as we have gotten at finding near-Earth asteroids and near-Earth objects that could potentially be problems for us that cross Earth's orbit, we can't see them all, right? And every once in a while, we get these reminders, like mid last decade, when an asteroid entered the atmosphere over Chelyabinsk in Russia. Chelyabinsk in Russia. There we go. Third time's the charm. And thankfully, it blew up in the atmosphere, but it did a lot of damage on the ground and injured a lot of people from falling glass and falling material from the shockwave of the explosion. And it was one that we did not see coming. We had no idea it existed, and it just coincidentally happened to enter the atmosphere on the day that all the media were doing the big, like, oh my god, something's passing in between the Earth and the moon, and it's the end of the world, and it wasn't. And then that happened on, coincidentally, the exact same day. So every once in a while, our solar system reminds us that these things are out there.
Oh, wonderful. And that's spooky to think about,
Yeah.
all the asteroids out there. But luckily, we have a mission like DART to figure out exactly what we can do in the future should a problem like that occur.
Yeah, exactly. And it's worth mentioning too, like the near Earth object survey that was done, that really did classify and find a lot of the asteroids that are out there. And we kind of know from all the ones that we found that all the ones we found were good. It's just that it's that percentage that you can't see yet, even though our telescopes are really good at finding things.
Yeah, gotcha. And a question here from Nick Lewis. They're asking, how are Falcon 9 boosters transported from the Cape to Vandenberg? Is it a truck or a ship? And actually, the way that they're used, they are taken overland by truck. And actually, Falcon 9 was specifically designed to be transported by truck. That's the reason why it's a tall, thin rocket compared to a wider rocket, such as, for example, Starship or Delta IV. Falcon 9 is very thin, so it can fit under bridges on highways. What they essentially do, they put a set of wheels underneath the engines and a set of wheels under the inner stage, hook it up to a truck, and just tow it. It's as simple as that. And that's what Falcon 9 was designed for. And we got a question here from Blake asking, what does the Q in Max Q stand for? Chris, could you go over what Max Q is, what it means?
Yeah, so Q is the symbol for aerodynamic pressure, for dynamic pressure on a system. So when we say max Q, that's sort of the shortened, abbreviated way of saying maximum dynamic pressure. So that's the point in the flight where, as the vehicle is accelerating through the dense lower atmosphere, and the atmospheric pressure and the acceleration of the rocket, it's the point in that flight envelope where the most stress is placed on the launch vehicle as it ascends through the dense lower atmosphere.
Gotcha. And yeah, that's a big challenge on the rocket because, like you said, that's the most force from the atmosphere being pushed onto the rocket. So making through max Q is a major step in a launch.
It is, and in fact, many rockets, including the Falcon 9, actually throttle the engines back just a little bit as they go through max Q to manage those pressures over the vehicle. Not all, but some.
And to actually add on to that, Tony asked, a real quick add-on, did we see the sonic boom during Max Q? And that's a good question. It's also interesting because during Max Q, when the stage goes supersonic, there is a sonic boom produced. But because the rocket is moving upwards, we don't hear it. The sonic boom isn't sent backwards back down to Earth. If you were, say, and never do this, let's say never ever do this, but if you were flying in a plane above the rocket, you would hear the sonic boom because it's in the direction the rocket's traveling. But on the ground, because we're in the exact opposite direction of the rocket, we don't hear a sonic boom. But that is a very good question and a very interesting question too.
And and I'll add one thing to that because it is very, very cool, and I think I saw it on Michael's track of the launch. But sometimes if the atmospheric conditions are just right, you can actually see the sound waves ripple away from the rocket. And I think I saw that on Michael's track of this one. So sometimes you can actually see it go through that transonic regime there.
Yeah, very cool. And we got a question from Lightning Rod talking about Dimorphos, asking what kind of orbit is the asteroid in? So, Chris, where is this? Is it near Earth? Is it orbiting Earth? Is it by Mars? Where is this asteroid we're talking about?
Oh, got you. So Didymos, yes. So Didymos is in an orbit that takes it from just over 1 astronomical unit, so it doesn't cross Earth's orbital path, which is important. It's one of the reasons why we chose this one to do it with, because it's not a threat to us, and nothing we can do to it can make it a threat on this mission. So we know it's good. And it arcs out to 2.3 astronomical units. So its orbital period is 2 years and 1 month around the sun. And it's inclined about 3 degrees to the ecliptic. So, that's part of why launching from Vandenberg and the inclination we're getting into. And this is part of what the Falcon 9 will do, is we'll get it into that intercept, accounting for its inclination. So it comes close to Earth, but it doesn't come too close to be like bad or anything like that for us. But Dimorphos itself is in a roughly circular and equatorial orbit around Didymos. It has an orbital period of 11 hours 55 minutes. After the impact, that is predicted to go down to 11 hours 45 minutes. And it's also in a retrograde orbit relative to Dimorphos, and since Dimorphos' rotation is also retrograde, which is really cool. But that is where they are in relation to one another, and we're going to try to alter that orbit just enough on Dimorphos that it lowers the orbital period by 10 minutes and lowers the orbital velocity by only 1 millimeter per second. So, and this is what's crazy, DART, a 610 kilogram craft, hitting this thing at 6.6 kilometers per second will only slow it down by 1 millimeter per second. But that's enough, because these kinetic impacts, if we ever had to do this for real, that's all we really need to do, is just very slowly change its velocity. Because once you do a small velocity change multiplied out over millions of kilometers of distance traveled, that makes a huge difference in where something is in relation to the Earth or another planet, if we don't have to do it for Earth, but maybe, say, Mars one day.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll never need to do it, but in the case we do...
And hopefully we'll never need to do it, but it is worth mentioning too that one of these a comet that we found coming into the inner solar system, that we found very, very shortly before it entered the inner solar system, almost hit Mars a couple years ago. And when it went by, it passed close enough to Mars that the spacecraft that were there all observed it and weathered some of the effects of its passage. And it only missed Mars by something like 19 hours, which is not a lot.
Wow.
At orbital velocity. So yeah, many reasons and warnings the solar system keeps giving us to have this capability to deflect these things if we need to. Yeah.
Yeah, and it actually only truly hit me at liftoff when the announcer was saying, on a demonstration mission for planetary defense, it hit me that this is a prototype for a mission that would literally save the planet. And that is not exaggeration in any way. It would literally save the entire human species, a mission like this. And that is kind of humbling and kind of scary to think about, that we're witnessing history, because any kind of mission that is an asteroid deflection will be a derivative of DART. We're watching the beginning of something big here.
Yeah.
But hopefully it never needs to be used.
Exactly, exactly. It's sort of what you said at the beginning of the broadcast, right? Like, this is such an odd mission for a variety of reasons because one, we don't want to hear from this spacecraft after 10 months. We wanted to slam into this thing and never be heard from again. We want it to crash, which is again bizarre for space exploration when you think about it. But yeah, it is that type of mission, and it's one that we ultimately hope we never have to repeat.
Yeah, exactly.
But better to have the
Really?
capability to do it.
Really quickly, I saw a question just come randomly through chat. Why are they crashing into it sort of head on, trying to put it into a smaller orbit instead of, I guess, rear-ending it and trying to put it into a larger orbit?
Oh, good question.
It is a good question. It's interesting
Yeah.
to talk about.
In some regards, slamming into it head on and slowing it down is easier than trying to get in behind it and knock it forward. I mean, ultimately, they could have opted for either option, right? In this case, for what we're trying to do with the system, how small the system is, and what we're specifically trying to measure for how we would do this going forward, slamming into it head on is better to slow it down.
I don't know if this was a consideration or not, but I wonder if you were to rear end it and add energy to its orbit instead of getting a head on collision and slow it down, I wonder if they were worried about the possibility of knocking it out of the orbit.
So that might have something to do with it, although the
Look.
there she
Sorry.
is. There we go.
Okay, we finally got a video feed back off the drone ship.
And that would now technically be B1063-4 because
There
they
you
level
go.
up upon landing. So yes. There is an unknown element of what exactly Dimorphos, the moon, will do when DART slams into it. We have studied this. You know, we've got our ideas of what it's going to do, what it's going to look like. But there is still some uncertainty. You know, we could hit it, and instead of just an ejecta plume coming out from the area that we hit it, there could be an ejecta plume come out the other side of it too. You know, and there is some uncertainty. So in that regard, slowing things down is a bit better. But again, and here we go.
Yep. The second
with the
engine
reignition.
there.
Yes, indeed.
And this is the burn that's going to carry DART away from Earth.
Look at the
leaving
speed
the Earth
going
system
now.
for the last time.
Yeah, just look at that speed, just bonkers acceleration on that, and it is it is a 53-second burn to place DART into its heliocentric transfer orbit here. So
I wonder what that stream of material coming off one side is. It looks like it stopped now, but there was a pretty steady stream. Did y'all see that?
Yeah, I saw that as well. I'm not sure what that was.
Huh. I don't think that's something I've ever recalled seeing before, at least that obvious.
it might, and remember too, the lighting tricks are really interesting here this time of day, where it's still dark on the ground, but the vehicle has broken into daylight over Argentina and Chile. Look at that. I was gonna guess, but there we go. Thank you, map.
Wonderful. It looked like a good stage 2 burn there, shut down right on time, and now it's about to fly over Antarctica.
Yeah, 37,700 kilometers per hour. Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. So now what we are waiting for, well, the next thing in the deployment sequence is coming up here, but about 55 minutes after liftoff, so still about 25 minutes from now until dark. Oh, look at that view from the camera of the sun flare, of the lens flare there. That's but yeah, it is about 25 more minutes until DART actually separates from the top of the Falcon 9 second stage here. So yeah, any other any questions we got that we want to keep rolling through?
Absolutely. It's been a while since we've done some super chats too, so I can run through some of those really quickly. Let's see here. We talked about this a little bit earlier. JR saying, wasn't DART supposed to launch from Cape Kennedy, Cape Canaveral? And we talked about them choosing Vandenberg because there's a little bit less traffic there. There's not as many rockets going, so it's a little bit easier to get your slot. You don't have to really work around other things. Plus, the orbit that they were sending it into didn't really need to go close to the equator. It could go into that high inclination to match the inclination of the asteroid, et cetera, et cetera. With this, I guess the second burn really was doing that, but that is why they could go from Vandenberg instead of from the Cape. And let's see here. Go Flyer SCWP says, why it's called the double asteroid redirection blew my mind. DART will hit the moon of an asteroid, changing the moon's orbit and pulling the larger asteroid. Thanks for awesome coverage as always. You're exactly right there,
Yep.
Go Flyer. It's literally crashing. I was confused too. I was like, what, are they going to crash into it twice? How are they going to pull that off? It's not crashing into it twice. It's a double asteroid. It's not a double impact.
Right.
I think.
Right. But that other part of it is correct, right? Because like we're primarily monitoring, right, like how the moon's orbit is altered around the larger asteroid, right?
Right.
But that second part of what they said is that, by altering the moon, it changes the gravitational characteristics of the two asteroid system, right? Of Dimorphos and Didymos. And that will eventually wobble them. So it will eventually, it will wobble the whole system and change the trajectory of the whole system. Not as much as like slamming DART into Dimorphos, will not as great of a change as that, but it will because of orbital characteristics. But again, that's why we chose something that doesn't cross Earth's orbit. So nothing we could do to it can harm us.
Gotcha. So here is an interesting thing I just saw in the chat. Because the spacecraft is in the sun, and it was sort of right there above the Terminator, if you were in southern Argentina and you looked up that they had seen a second stage jellyfish, I wonder if we're going to see any of those on social media or something coming up.
So
Theoretically.
Dost, you got really quiet there for me, but I think I caught something about like, is the question basically like, could they have seen the second stage burn as it came over Chile and Argentina?
Ah.
Is that what you asked?
See. Yes, that is what I was asking, yes.
Okay, cool. Oh, and I hear you a lot better now. Thank you.
Who knows?
Yes, yeah, they very well could have seen them. The southern portions where they were are not the most populated areas of either of those countries. But if someone was on the ground, I mean, and of course it was in orbit, so it's high enough. Yeah, they definitely could have seen the second stage doing its burn again if it was also clear. But yeah, they definitely could have seen it as it came overhead.
All right, and just confirming, I'm back now. You can hear me just fine?
Yes, perfectly,
right.
Doss.
Good.
Good deal. Our discount audio system that we tend to use. Let's see. I don't exactly get this one. Musical Wolf's asking, does Vandenberg have 4 tours? Towers. Are you using text-to-speech or something? Speech-to-text, Musical Wolves? Did you mean 4 towers? 4 tours?
Towers, lightning protection. So. Oh, it's our question. Yes.
Yeah, it's the question, I guess.
Ah, yes, it is our question. I like that. Does Vandenberg have lightning protection systems? Vandenberg does not. The Slick 4 East does not have lightning tower protection. That is something at Vandenberg because they do not have the weather systems that we have here in Florida and in other parts of the world and countries. So no, there are no lightning protection towers around the Slick 4E pad for SpaceX at Vandenberg.
Gotcha. And it looks like SpaceX had a little hiccup with maybe trying to get some video or something there. I'm going to keep on grabbing as many super chats as I can. Wolfram says, I'm staying at Orange because I don't want to be a red shirt. Here's some coffee money for Michael. We appreciate you, Wolfram. Don't want to be a red shirt. Nice. Blackhawk NZ, thank you so much for the support. All the way from New Zealand, it looks like. Ederlai Santos, thank you for the support as well. Alex Verharen, I'm going to go with. We appreciate you there. Boring Fan, you too, thank you for the support. Hiring, let's see here. Hang on, what? We appreciate you, DJ Magnum. I appreciate the support there. And then here's Musical Wolf asking about the 4 towers again. And I'm seeing if we've got anything. I don't want to miss any of these because when we do the launch, we sort of put a moratorium on questions. But look at this. Wait. Look at the screen. This is not something you usually see on the SpaceX graphic.
A line shooting away from Earth?
Yep.
SpaceX does not do this very often. And this is, you can see on the screen what's being illustrated. They did that second burn, and now they've actually got the escape from Earth, it looks like. The second burn was the escape burn, right?
It was indeed, yes.
Yeah, going almost 40,000, 38,000 kilometers per hour now. And that line not wrapping back around the Earth, it is really missing the Earth now. So on its way out towards its rendezvous with, see, now I'm just going to say Diddy Moon. Every time I try to say it, I'm just going to say Diddy Moon and Dimorphos.
It's so much nicer.
I don't even know the real name of the asteroid anymore. I give up. It's just Diddy Moon. But that's the straight line that we see on the screen there. Let's see here. Here's a question. Will there be a camera for everyone to see the collision? We don't expect to get a live feed of the collision, but there is that Italian CubeSat, the little microsat that's going to separate in advance of the collision, and they're going to have a look and see if they can see the impact. Is there going to be a flash? Is there going to be ejecta, dust cloud coming off or something like that? That's part of the science. We're going to be really interested to see what it is that we see. But they are going to try to image that with a smaller satellite that'll separate. Let's see here. So here's a question from Smooth Juice. Hey guys, could they launch a booster from any launch site and land off the coast of another instead of towing it? And I think the question is, could they do a downrange landing, but not with a drone ship, but a landlocked, like an actual landing pad on land?
Yeah, like if there was a piece of land sufficiently downrange, could they just go there instead of a drone ship?
Yeah, usually not.
Well, I mean, you could if there was a unpopulated piece of land there, but that second part becomes the problem.
Right.
With that, is finding a piece of land that wouldn't be populated. So what you'd basically have to do is either find an island or, a spaceport that was downrange, and that becomes really hard. Technically, they could.
Right.
But there's just no land downrange for that to happen, which is why they end up on the drone ships. Plus, the drone ships let you tweak, right? Like, the land would have to be under a very specific area, so you'd be limited to where you could launch out of, or the direction that you could launch out of, right? Whereas the drone ship, you can launch whatever inclination you need to get into, and you just put the drone ship right where you need the rocket to land.
Right, exactly. You got a lot more flexibility if you can put the drone ship wherever you're going, because all the different target orbits you try to get into, as opposed to a fixed piece of landing pad out on a piece of land somewhere, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And y'all, we got this. I am going to just literally drag it over. But we've got, as promised, a tweet. Wow, I just really messed that up. A tweet from Jack Beyer with his long exposure of the SpaceX Falcon 9 1063.3 taking DART up. I'm going to link this tweet up as well, but right there, look at that streak shot. Isn't that cool?
Beautiful.
Yeah, just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, coming out of the fog, and then I love the little bursts of light as it hits the various cloud layers as it went up.
Yeah.
Yeah, the flare as it goes into the first layer of clouds. That's so cool.
That is really cool.
The entry burn on the left?
I think those are planes.
Oh yeah, that might be.
Which I love how chaotic it makes it look, where it kind of makes it look like the planes are like, wow,
wow, what is that?
Yeah, which completely not. But yeah, no, this photo is great.
Turn. What is that coming up?
Oh no, the exclusion zone.
Again, y'all, this is a photo. This is a long exposure photo that Jack Beyer out there at Vandenberg took. He's one of our photographers. You hear him on the stream all the time and stuff like that. And we just spammed that link into chat. Head on over to Twitter and toss Jack a follow. because he tweets stuff like this every chance he gets. Planes, too. He's got some cool pictures of planes flying ridiculously low. So, anyways, Jack, thank you so much for sharing that. And we wanted to put it here so y'all could see it. Hop back over and check in with the SpaceX feed again. It continues to leave the Earth as expected. And let me see if I can't just run through the rest of these super chats. Axie says, "Go asteroid killer rocket, go." It's not an internet rocket.
Yeah.
It's an asteroid killer. It's more of an asteroid persuader, really. It just sort of boops it in a direction instead of killing it. Cesar Mendoza says, "Tijuana is ready." We appreciate
yes.
you, Cesar. Thank you for stopping in here today, and thanks for watching. We've got John Klopfer again saying, "Best wishes about the availability. Raw data had nothing to do with expectations or results, just encouraging transparency, science, STEM, humanity, go." Sounds like one of Jack's chants over there. So, John, we got you. Thank you so much for the support, and thanks for tuning in this evening. And then, oh, well, here was a super chat that we talked about a little bit. German Ramos Barrocal saying, "Why is Dart hitting it from the front, trying to slow it down? Wouldn't it be easier to hit it from behind and speed it up?" I have a feeling that if you can hit it going one direction, you could hit it going the other direction at 6 kilometers per second. So I think NASA probably crashed into it for a reason. I don't know if their official reasoning was we'd rather make the orbit smaller around its parent as opposed to make it larger around its parent. But anyways, that is... I have a feeling they could have hit it from either direction, you know, because the relative velocities are so ridiculous anyways. Alexander Verheeren, thank you so much for the support. Just reading through these real quick. There's another one. This is going to the asteroid. What does this talk about orbit? I think we were sort of a two-phase launch here, right? Didn't we go into an initial orbit and then we had an ejection burn? So it did briefly orbit the Earth.
It did. So the initial parking orbit, which is what it's called, so the initial orbit that Falcon 9 inserted into today was a 200 by 300 kilometer orbit at 64.7 degrees inclination. So when the second stage cut off for the first time at the end of what we normally consider the launch phase, that put it into a stable orbit of Earth. And we do that for a couple of reasons for these interplanetary missions. One is if you ever encountered an issue with your second stage, if you're in a stable orbit, it gives you some time to work through anything that you might need to. Thankfully, we don't normally have to do that, but it is one of the considerations for getting into a stable orbit like that. And then the second burn is what ejected it out away from Earth and into what's called the heliocentric transfer orbit.
For just a second there, you could see the Earth getting smaller and smaller. The entire curve of the Earth back behind the camera there. Hopefully we get another one of those cameras back. But that was, look at this. Here we go, it's coming up. Look at that.
Yeah, look at that. And I love how you can see Falcon 9 rotating now for both thermal control, but also getting itself, you know, like, okay, like here we go, getting ready for the deployment of
look at that.
Yeah.
This reminds me of the Falcon Heavy test flight when we were watching views from high Earth orbit.
Yep. Very, very cool there, y'all. Again, DART, the DART mission, the spacecraft that's going to crash into an asteroid, is on its way, leaving Earth now after that successful second stage burn. We're about halfway towards the deploy here. I think, another 10 or so minutes before we get up to spacecraft separation, if I'm not mistaken, right?
About 10 minutes, yep, 55 something, yes, 55:40 is the pre-planned timeline. Don't panic if it's a few seconds on either side of that.
Look at the Earth in the background in that shot. That's so cool.
That's awesome. Just seeing live views of our planet is just trippy. Like, half the time my brain doesn't understand, hey, that is where you live from like 200 miles above it. And the other half of the time, I'm just like, that is amazing.
I'm going to keep trying to bang through some of these. So much support came in here, y'all. We're able to do these streams because y'all keep showing up. Not only do you watch, but you like and subscribe or whatever. You're showing up on tweets. You're asking questions. And the financial support, too, makes it possible for us to continue these streams. Daniel Craftsman, thank you so much for the Canadian dollars there. We appreciate it. Peter Peter Ferminger, I guess from Australia, looks like, says, so the dinosaurs were killed by a pyramid? Thanks for your work. Look, I'm not saying it was aliens. I don't have enough hair to say that it's aliens. Here we've got Josiah Waters saying, great view from here on Easter Island.
Oh, wow.
Like, actually from Easter Island, you were able to see it over?
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely, hang on. Yeah, it definitely came close enough to Easter Island.
Cool.
Because Easter Island was one of the transoceanic abort landing sites for the shuttles when they went out of Vandenberg, or when they were going to go out of Vandenberg. So yeah, they could have seen it. Yeah, they probably could have seen it from Easter Island. Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
And Chris,
it actually probably would have come right overhead. Yeah.
Nice.
Chris, I was just about to ask, what does Easter Island have to do with Vandenberg?
It had a long enough runway that if the shuttles ever needed to get down somewhere, that's where they were going if they were launching into more like the 70 to 60 degree inclination ranges out of Vandenberg.
And that question right there is shuttle bait. Come on.
I knew exactly what I was doing.
But weren't you proud of me for how brief I kept the answer?
Yes, sir.
I love that we're still talking about it. Hey, here's a question from Flash saying, how does the asteroid redirect work? That's an interesting question. And I've actually got something queued up here. This may be a little dirty the way I'm showing it, y'all, but I have a thing to illustrate this. Chris, if you want to start talking about it, I'll get to where I want to be here.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So the way that this works is, so the DART spacecraft itself, the 610 kilogram impactor, and that's all it is. It's an impactor. It has solar arrays for power during transit. It has a camera for navigation, and it has a communications dish. But its purpose is to slam into this asteroidal moon or moonlet called Dimorphos. And it will hit Dimorphos head-on at about 6.6 kilometers per second, and it will slow Dimorphos' orbital speed by 1 millimeter per second. And that doesn't sound like a lot, and it's not, because it doesn't need to be. So to move asteroids like this, you really only have to slow them down a little bit, because when you take that velocity change and you extrapolate it out over millions and millions and millions of kilometers, that has a huge impact on where it actually ends up, right? So that's how you get something to miss in space. Just slow it down, because if you slow it down millions of kilometers later, it won't be there when Earth is there. It won't be there when Mars is there, and it will miss. But we've never done this before, right? This is all theoretical. We know it should work, but we've never done it before. So this is what we're testing. And exactly what DOS is showing you right now on screen is what we want to do. So white is the original orbit that Dimorphos is in right now, and blue is the one that it should be in after DART hits it. And that 1 millimeter per second velocity change actually changes the overall orbital period by 10 minutes. So instead of orbiting once every 11 hours, 55 minutes, Dimorphos will now orbit Didymos every 11 hours, 45 minutes. And that is a change that we will be able to see and to measure. And that's how we're going to know exactly how this worked. And that's sort of our proof of concept for if we ever needed to do this in real life.
I got this as well, Chris. It's going to take me just a second, but y'all bear with me. We had some of these astronauts actually, not asteroids, up on the space station pretending to be asteroids, right? So let me see if I can't fast forward here. And the physics of it works like this. You've got one little thing that hits another thing and actually is going to boop, end up imparting a little bit of velocity to it, or a little bit of change in momentum or energy, whatever you want to say there. So this is actually really interesting. These videos of the astronauts, they're up on the ISS. They're throwing packages at each other, basically. But it's interesting because, look, every time he catches it, it's not hitting him right in the center of mass. And when it doesn't hit him in the center of mass, watch it. What happens? Okay, yes, go back and get hit again. There we go. Watch what happens whenever it's not right in the center of mass. He actually ends up rotating a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Look at that. And so that's something that could happen here. If we don't even know what the center of mass really of the asteroid is, the little moonlit asteroid, and where we hit this thing, I'm sure they're going to be sort of aiming for it, right? But it may actually make the asteroid not that much. That's exaggerated because the size of the bag and the size of the astronaut, whatever. But it'll be very interesting to see what happens when it hits. It may actually use some of the energy to rotate it instead of just slowing it down.
Yeah, it has.
I had that video queued up. I had to show that video. I thought it was cool.
Oh yeah, no. Agreed.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And speaking of slowing down, Steven, one of our other hosts, is pointing out on the back channel, look at the speed. The speed was almost 40,000 kilometers per hour, and now it's down to 29,000 kilometers per hour. Why is that slowing down?
So I was actually just answering this question for someone on Twitter who deleted the exact same question as I was answering it. So I couldn't answer him back. Yeah, no, this is a function of orbital mechanics, and this is a function, if you remember back into science class, right? Energy cannot be destroyed. It can just be converted, right? So you put all of that energy into your stage to throw it out from Earth, but Earth's gravity is still trying to pull you back down to it until you actually escape Earth's gravity well. So this is just energy being exchanged between two bodies. So, and this is one of the weird things about orbital mechanics is if you want to go lower in an orbit, you end up going faster. And if you want to go higher in an orbit, you end up going slower. So like orbital velocity for low Earth orbit is about 7.7 kilometers per second, right? This is what the ISS is at, what the Dragon capsules orbit at, what the Starlinks orbit at. But our satellites in geostationary orbit are at 3.3 kilometers per second, but they're higher. So you have to burn and use more energy to throw them out there, but they actually end up at lower velocities comparatively because of how it works and how energy is transferred.
It's interesting when you have an orbit that's like an elliptical orbit. It'll have the same energy at all times, but the energy is a balance between the velocity and the altitude. Because remember, altitude is sort of energy. It's potential energy, how high you are above the Earth and the Earth's gravity acting to pull you down. And then velocity is kinetic energy. So your orbit is a balance of the potential and kinetic energy. And as one starts to go down, the other one goes up because it stays the same. But in this case, because they've accelerated to escape velocity, they're eventually going to get far enough away from Earth that it doesn't really matter. Earth is not going to win this tug-of-war because the Falcon 9's second stage kicked it hard enough that it's going to get away from Earth.
Yeah, and we're seeing this because it's very obvious on the long haul, right, as we wait these 55 minutes for the separation. But the exact opposite happens when you deorbit. So if SpaceX were to have the little velocity indicator for the Dragon as they were deorbiting and coming home, right, you would see the deorbit burn start and you would see that velocity decrease because you're altering your orbit, but you've altered your orbit to send you deeper into the gravity well of the planet, right? So once that deorbit burn is complete, you'll actually see your velocity start to increase as you start diving into Earth's atmosphere until the air pressure begins to slow you down for atmospheric reentry.
Yep. So it's interesting. You see those numbers and you're like, oh my gosh, it's slowing down. Is it going to fall back down? And it is not going to fall back down. It's going fast enough that it's going to get away from the Earth here. Let me see if I can't grab just a couple more. Josiah Waters, thank you so much for the support. We appreciate you there. Bob Bright, as well as a Capcom member. Again, y'all, the membership program, it's a cool way to support us on a regular basis. If you find yourselves in our streams regularly, you might want to think of becoming a member. It's that little join button that you may see. It gets you some emotes and other cool things like that. But that's like a monthly support. We appreciate you there, Bob. Era J says, shout out.
There we come.
Chicken Hawk? I don't actually know what that is, but all right, we appreciate it. And it looks like we're going to get the spacecraft separation shortly here. So let's stand by for that. That's the gold foil of the spacecraft on the left-hand side.
Yep. And the white dish there is the high-gain antenna that it's testing out.
Oh.
And the stripy thing is the solar array. One of them.
And here we go. There we go.
Yes!
No.
Go, little impactor, go. Do us well. There goes Dart.
Beautiful.
Look at it.
Tiniest little spacecraft. Good grief. So it has separated
Oh,
from the
great
payload
to
adapter.
see.
Yep, separated from the payload adapter on the second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 there, and it is off on its own. Coming up
Yeah.
in the next bit of time, it should unfurl those solar arrays, those ROSA, the roll-up solar arrays, and it needs to go power positive. Mission for the Falcon 9 is great. Spacecraft is separated.
Yeah.
Mission for DART is just starting. They still need to get that
Yep.
spacecraft power positive so that the batteries don't drain. So we need those experimental solar arrays to unroll and work, right?
100%, yeah, and those solar arrays are cool. They're the ones that we sort of tested on the ISS and then put on the ISS. But they've got some neat improvements too. They've got little mirrors and little reflectors on them, so that the farther DART gets from the sun, those reflectors will angle some of the solar energy back onto the solar cells, so you can hopefully get more efficiency out of your solar arrays. And that's a cool little thing that they're testing on this mission too.
Yep. All right, just a couple more super chats. Daniel McKeehan, thank you so much for the support. Mike Astronaut, we appreciate you as well. And Andrew Pierce, we appreciate you there too. Don't have time to get to all of the questions. We never have time because we run our mouths too much. But we really do appreciate y'all joining us here this evening. Again, we saw the successful launch of the Falcon 9, a successful landing of the booster, that booster on the drone ship, and then we saw a successful second stage, multiple second stage burns, and successful spacecraft separation. So DART, our very first planetary defense mission, is well on its way to crash into an asteroid. Literally what it's doing. So I believe I'm out of feeds here. I don't think I have any more feeds. Here, maybe this one's just, nope, that one's just so delayed it hadn't shown the logo yet. So Michael's packed up his camera. We don't have our own feed out there in the field. It's just gonna show you Fleet Cam or something from Starbase or something.
I think that's our cue. The Falcon 9 did its job perfectly. DART is on its way. That's a success in my book.
Yep. Anyways, let's go ahead and just roll this down really quickly. Again, our cameras out in the field have already packed up and gone back on home, so we don't have our own live feeds. That's why we did the stream here this evening, because Michael Baylor and Jack Beyer were both out there at Vandenberg Space Force Station. Said it right that time. Photographing and videoing this launch for us, bringing us that live feed with a fantastic track from Michael Baylor there. And then back in the studio, we had Chris Gebhardt, Assistant Managing Editor for NASASpaceflight. Chris, thank you.
My absolute pleasure, as always.
All right, and then also back in the studio, Ian Atkinson, one of the writers and live stream hosts you hear on occasion. Ian, thank you so much for staying up this evening with us.
Yeah, it was great to be here as well. Very important, very historic mission, and I'm very excited to see where we go from here with it.
All right, and then last but not least here, John Galloway. That's me for NASA Spaceflight. We're going to go ahead and sign off here. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for all the support. Make sure if you haven't yet, sub to the channel. You know how to get back here if this is the sort of thing you like to watch and or listen to. But for now, we will see you nerds later. Thank you so much, and congratulations to SpaceX and NASA on that successful launch of DART.
Propulsion continues to be normal.
RCP chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango Delta nominal.
Flight down, SC off. Say again, SC off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.